So we're going to use this table. You can have it larger, you can have it smaller, whatever works for you, whatever space you have. The first thing you will need is to identify a space in your home where you can set up your ancestor altar. Now, it's okay for it to be in a high traffic area, but the ideal space would be somewhere that is not such high traffic that you will be able to visit the altar and spend time. If that's not possible, it's better that you have your altar set up than nothing at all. Space, you work with whatever space you have. It doesn't have to be large, it doesn't have to be small or too small, it could be somewhere in between. But whatever you have, work with what you got for now, and then you can always build on that. I've seen super elaborate ones. I've seen very modest ones. So it's whatever you want to do. Or if you don't have a tabletop, somewhere on a shelf. In terms of rooms in the house, it's best to have it either in a living room, a family room, library, kitchen, something like that. It's not the best to have in your bedroom. But if that's the only space you have, you work with that. Okay, now after you have your tabletop, you need a white cloth. White cloth is the next thing that you need. After the white cloth, you're going to have your items to purify the area, the table and the immediate area. You have a selection. You can use Florida water. I don't know if you can see that. Come on, camera. Maybe back it up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. Florida water. It's not picking up too good. Holy water, which these two you can get from the Botanica if you have one in your neighborhood. It's the neighborhood store where you get all your spiritual items. This is Palo Santo. So here, it's that's called sacred wood, and it smells delicious, and the vibration of this is just wonderful. It cleanses. It's a high vibration herb called Palo Santo. And you have very popular sage. You can smudge with sage to cleanse the area. And then I have this censer here, which you can burn frankincense and myrrh. So what I have here is the censer, and inside you have coal, and then you have what they call myrrh and some frankincense. And you could put that on the coal and light the coal first, and then put the resin on top, and then let it smoke, and then you would purge the area around and around, always being fire safety, please. Watch, you have to be careful when you're working with fire. So always err on the side of safety. This you can burn in the censer with, you can remove that. You can just have it empty. You can light it and put it here to be fire safe. Or you can do the same thing with the sage. You can light it and then put it in something that's fire safe. And then with the smoke, it's the smoke that counts, that cleanses the area. So once you've cleansed your area, you then want to begin to build your altar. You need a representation of all of the elements, earth, water, fire, air. And if you have most of them, that's fine. The one thing that's beautiful about an ancestor altar is that it is a creative process. There's no right or, well, there are some wrongs that you want to, stay away from, but it's mostly right. It's mostly a creative process. It is something that you intuit along the way. You have your basic items. This is a basic setup, and then you will intuit once you start to work with your ancestors. You'll start to feel and sense the type of things that they will want on the altar. So the next will be, we'll start with the representations of the elements. Water, you can have it in a glass like this, or you can put it in what we call a hikara, which is a calabash shell. You can have the water in there on your altar, or you can put it in an earthen jar. For earth, you can have stone any old stone that you feel that you'd like to put there. You can have crystals. This is turquoise, semi-precious stone, and then this is clear quartz crystal, and another, I believe this is obsidian. You can also have a container that has earth in it, earth or earth-like items. It could be herbs, it could be, like this is tobacco, fresh tobacco, that you can use to represent earth. So anything that represents earth is great. Then you would have representation of air, and these are some of the things that typically represent air. You have a bell, and it could be the type of bell that you ring as well, any type of bell. Incense also represents air. That would be a periodic representation of air, because you would have to, whenever you light it, it represents air. Or you can, keep it like this on the altar, and then when you burn it down, you can always make sure you put a new stick in there to represent air. And then you have the fan. Hand fan, any type of hand fan is fine. And that's air. Now you have your representation of fire in the form of candles. I particularly like to work with white candles with the ancestors because, white can be, it symbolizes peace, it symbolizes light. But I know people who work with other color candles, or sometimes if you're working on a particular type of energy that you want to get help with the ancestors, you can use another type of color if you like. But these are a couple of representations of candles. You can use any candle that you want. This one in particular is a 7-day candle. You can light it and let it stay lit until it burns all the way down. I always like to put my 7-day candles in a container, fill it with water, so that when it gets down to the bottom, because a lot of times, sometimes these candles, the glass can break. It's not often, but you always want to be on the side, err on the side of safety. And if you put water in it, so if it does break, the water will rush in and douse out the fire. This is I call these penny candles. This you would have to, and I'll use this during the demonstration when I set up, because I like the short burning candles for right now. I seem to be working with that a lot. So this will burn for a few hours and then it'll be out. And you would light it in a way that you would drip wax in order to make it stand on the glass, and then it's out in a few hours and you're good. This is a tea light, which has become very popular in altars nowadays. I like to again keep it in a fire safety container. So there you have it. Now they have lots of different pillar candles and taper candles that have nice holders, candle holders. Whatever it is that you feel you want to use is fine. But when you're working with fire, always be safe. Don't have it near any curtains or anything that's flammable. When I first started to work with altars, I burned 7-day candles most of the time because that's the way I was taught. But you can use any type of candle for your altars. What's nice about the 7-day candle is that, it has a nice ambiance because it stays lit for days and days. Now, I have to tell you that these 7-day candles that you get from maybe the 99-cent store, the dollar store, they don't really last 7 days because they're not made to. But if you go to a botanica and you get a 7-day candle, you will get the ones that they're a little thicker, they're made a little bit more resilient, and they actually last for 7 days. Next is a representation of your ancestors. So since we're not setting up a real altar, I don't have any pictures of anybody, and this will just represent our ancestors. So this is a cute little picture of a little old lady, cartoon lady. So we use that, little grandma. We'll put that there. And also, you can actually just have a list. And a lot of people like to put a list inside if they don't have any pictures, or if they have some pictures and they can mix it up, they like to have a list of the ancestors in a nice frame. So that's an option too, but totally the list just like this is just fine. in building up your altar, you want to have some prayers in advance already either printed out, or if you have books. This is a nice one called Conversations with God. This is another one, Power of the Psalms. If you're familiar with Psalms, you can pick a few Psalms, because what you want to do is when you set up your altars, you want to start with prayers. So once the altar is set up, this is something that you do towards the end. You pray and you invite the ancestors in. First you pray, you consecrate this space with prayer, with affirmations, with spoken word from your heart, and then so that's one aspect of setting it up. So these are just 2 books, but use whatever prayers you have. You can use Bibles, Bible passages, any types of prayers that you feel. There are ancestor prayers as well. I have a few of my own. I will put them links to ancestor prayers below, so you can look out for that. What adds a nice touch to your ancestor altar and gives it lots of personality is to add things that your ancestors liked when they were alive, and also a representation of, I like to add, well, first we'll say we'd like to add a statue that may be from another culture that also is in your family lineage, but you're not sure exactly who they are. So you can have a statue that represents them. What some people do that have Native American ancestry, but they might not know who those people are, they'll get a statue of a Native American, a man or woman, medicine man or woman, or anyone from the tradition, the culture, and they'll have that representation on their ancestor altar. And also another thing is something personal from them, like maybe one of your ancestors wore a particular set of glasses and you have them, add them to the altar. Or a brooch that they used to wear that you inherited, that's something that nice to add. A bracelet, of some sort, if they, any type of jewelry that they may have worn. A wallet is good. Keys are good. This is a little glass that you would put their favorite drink in, whether it's a beverage, non-alcoholic or alcoholic beverage. You can put that on your altar as well. And some ancestors smoked, and so us having a cigar on there, or cigarettes or whatever. It's not about you and your morals and what you do or you don't do, your habits or whatever. It's whatever they liked when they were alive that makes them feel welcome and makes them feel wanted. So you would put that on the altar. Okay, so that's all the things that you will need for your beginning. Give or take, don't worry if you don't have everything. It's okay. Now we're going to get started actually building the altar. So in the interest of time, let's say that you've purified the area with either the incense, the Florida water, or the incense, Florida water, Palo Santo, sage, whatever it is that you choose to use. So that's already been done. So you've cleansed the area, and now we're ready to start to build the altar. You take your cloth, and looks mean a lot. It has to be appealing not only to them, but also to you, because it has to be appealing to you and make you feel like you want to be there. Okay, I like to start with putting the elements on. So we will first start with water. For earth, I'm going to use 2 things. I'm going to use the regular stone and the quartz crystal. Use whatever you like. For air, I'm going to use the fan. I'm going to keep it folded until I get to know how much space I'm going to use. So I'll keep it folded for now. And fire. So I will keep that towards the front because you always want to keep the fire away from anything flammable. So, and we'll rearrange as we start to get things set up on here. You will just rearrange things the way you like. Now that we have those set up, now we start to put the personal items. Put the picture of the ancestors. Usually I like to set it towards the center back. And then if you have a list, you can just lay that down somewhere. This is totally, let it flow the way you want it to set it up. We're going to put the statue on to represent the ancestors that we don't know from a particular bloodline. Let's say the Congo. Let's say this lady is from the Congo, and we will put her there to represent those ancestors that we know are in our bloodline, but we don't know who they are exactly. Then maybe the eyeglasses right in front. Add the brooch too. We'll also add a little something something. Yeah. We're not going to put anything in there, but just to set it up so you could see how it looks. Perhaps the bracelet as well. And then put the cigar, because I have an uncle that used to smoke cigars, so I have one on my own particular ancestor altar. Okay. So now that we have everything on the altar, what you want to do is take out your prayers, any book, a Bible, any type of prayers, and then you would pray at the altar, and you would consecrate it with your prayers, inviting them in. Now, one thing you want to do is, if you have names, what you do is you say, you say the name, each name 3 times to ensure that they can hear you. You speak with them and you say, I invite you to this ancestral shrine. I set this up in honor of you and for you and I to build a great relationship together, and so that you can help me along the journey of life. And I send you love, I send you light, I send you peace, all the things that are in your heart. You can go ahead and recite at the end of setting up everything. You could, you would light your candle, of course. You would have your incense going if that's something that you want. And I think, yeah. So once you do that, then you sit quietly for a moment in reverence for what you have just done. And also what you do once the ancestor altar is set up, then you periodically go to the altar and you call their names, you sit, you meditate, you can sing, you can talk your heart out to them, you can share stories with them, you can show them your work, you can pray, you can, it's just like a family member that's still alive, somebody that you would commune with and get together with and talk and share stories and all of that. And over time of building the relationship, then you will be able to, really be able to develop that relationship and start to hear them talk to you or send you messages. From time to time, people like to also share food. So you could take a small plate and put some of your dinner or your lunch on there for them. And when I set it down, a good thing to say is, this is for all my ancestors. You could take a little bit off your plate, which gives it a personal touch that you have taken from your plate to share with them. So you could make a small plate and take a little off your plate to add to that, as if to say, I'm sharing, even from my own plate with you. And you leave it there. You can leave it there overnight and just get rid of it the next day by throwing it in the garbage or putting it at the base of a tree, or whatever is the most comfortable method of disposal that you like to use. Not a hard process. Oh, I forgot one thing. A nice touch is to add some flowers, especially the first time. And there you have it. Now, one thing I wanted to add. If you don't know the names of any of your ancestors, you can just say, ancestors, elevated ancestors of my mother's side, elevated ancestors of my father's side. I salute you and I invite you in. They know who you are, so you don't have to have their names. It's nice to have their names, but you don't have to wait to have their names to set up an altar. They will come. They love you. They will come. They want to be with you. They want to help you. So invite them in and have a wonderful journey getting to know your ancestors, setting up your altar. Like I said, it's a creative process, so This is just basics to get you started. But as you go along, please feel free to add anything you like, embellish upon this, change it up, however you like. But they're just those basic, the elements, and the picture of the ancestors, and everything else is up for grabs. As long as you say your prayers, consecrate the area, you're all good. It's been a pleasure showing you how to set this up.